Defensive coordinator Ephraim Banda back for another year at Utah State. It's nice that the head coach and both coordinators have stayed the same, something that sometimes hard to do with programs from year to year.
Yeah,
but one of the things that Coach Anderson stressed when he talked to the general media today was this upcoming season is going to be a lot tougher. He highlighted the schedule is going to be more challenging, but also teams are going to see you coming, where maybe last year they didn't. Does that change your approach at all to this upcoming season, or is it just, you know what, we take one day at a time and it just is what we do?
I think anytime you have the element of surprise like we did last year, it always helps, which means things will be harder this year because there will not be the element of surprise. But when you look at it, things have not changed much in terms of what people think about Utah State. They're still picking us to be, down there in terms of where we finish. So I think what that says is that people don't believe, in who we are and what we've done to this point, which is good because this is a blue-collar place that's always had a chip on its shoulder and really does well in those environments. In terms of, how do we approach it? For us, it's just start over again. But that's football in general. Every year in college football, it's a rebuild. You can't try to put it in your mind to reload. It's a rebuild because the college portal, the transfer portal, kids graduating, kids developing at different rates. So for us, it's back to day one. 1-0, get 1 degree better, like Coach A says, every day, and focus on the 1 day increments of getting to our goal. Not popping our head up and looking around too much, which that's part of it, right? That's what we're talking a little bit about right now. But at the ultimate focus goal for us is to take it 1 day at a time, 1 degree better, go 1-0, and then at the end look up and see where we're at. So to answer your question, I think that's what it's about. We're not going to surprise anybody. It's going to be harder. Back to the freaking grind, going 1-0, keeping our head down, being 1 degree better, and keeping the chip on our shoulder, what Utah State's always had.
It seemed like the defense specifically seemed to ratchet up a lot more in the last quarter of the season. And I don't know if that's a fair assessment, if you believe
100%.
the same, but it seemed like the pressures and the attacking seemed to be more effective. Was that more a function of the players finally understanding what you were asking them to do, or did you start to kind of develop the defense and tweak it as it went, or what was the function of that? How did that kind of evolve and happen?
I think it was two things. It was one of it was definitely the beginning of our season, and you look at our schedule, opening up with Washington State, who's a Pac-12 school, obviously, as we know. Following up with, I think it was North Dakota, who was a nationally ranked FCS program, has done really well, very good program. And I think after that it was Air Force and Boise. So you had 4 really solid teams to come out of the gates with. And anytime you come out of the gates with 4 solid teams and you're a new defense transitioning from odd to even, there's a learning curve. Obviously, you'd like the learning curve to be a little more less curvy, if that makes sense. But it curved hard, quick. And so I think it was part of that. We were new, transitioning from our front, to our front from odd to even, and playing really good teams. Then what happened was, and what I think what you saw was our kids starting to really understand and grasp what we're doing, and then play better with less mistakes. Our aggression started to hit, a little bit more. Our front really did a great job in that area, and with Al Lapua was moved on, and now Alex Devine being officially our D-line coach, who was our front coordinator last year, and he's been promoted to D-line coach now. I thought they just did a phenomenal job of creating what we needed to up front, and it all starts up there. And once that started happening, we really played well down the stretch. So I think it was a culmination of a really hard start, a new defense, finishing with a good understanding, our D-line developing dramatically, and then really just kind of getting in sync towards the end.
And then how does that help you coming into this season where it's not so much new? Yeah. Yes, you lost some players, but for those who are back, the philosophy really hasn't changed much. And just moving into a new season, where they've got that under their belts now?
Two things again. One, players. We got a good group of guys who've done this already once. And their challenge is to not trip over the first hurdle like they did last year early in the season. Let's be more detailed and have less big mistakes early in the season on things that should not have mistakes on. So their level of detail and focus on the things and errors should drop because they've been in this deal for a little bit longer, like they did late last season. And I think that's why we played so well. The second part of that is, as a coaching staff, which I have a wonderful staff, I bring back the core of my staff. Guys, like Alex Devine, who was already on the staff with me before and is now, back as the full-time D-line coach. Mike Zuckerman's back as a linebacker coach. Nick Perimski's back as striker coach. We had a new corners coach, but he's been in the system before, so he knows what we're doing. All our support staff guys are pretty much back. So it's not only just the players understanding more what we're doing and being better at it, but I have a bunch of mechanics in the garage that have already worked on this engine once and know how to really run it. So having all those guys back, I think, will be a big part of us in year two.
Personnel-wise, I mean, as you said, you have to rebuild every year, and so you've lost some key players from a year ago, but you've got some new ones coming in.
Yeah.
Just in addition to the development of current players you have, how does that kind of fit in based on what you saw in the spring? I know you still got to see a lot here in the next couple of weeks, but Daniel Grishik and MJ, and you got some dudes that are coming in to fill some holes. But there's still some questions that remain for who's going to, especially with Switzer after his injury. So how does that, you kind of see that development of guys who are already here, but the newcomers and how they're kind of filling some of those holes?
Yeah, newcomers, let's talk about it real quick. We obviously hit the portal hard again in JC's. We brought in Daniel Grishik, who has had a phenomenal first 6 months of his tenure here at defensive end. We brought in John Ward from UCLA, another defensive end. Tavian Coleman from Trinity Valley, a D tackle that we really, really like. MJ Tafisi from Washington. Cole Joyce from UCF. Gervin Hall from Miami in the back end. And then a couple walk-on guys who we do feel like could be able to contribute. Wes Wright from BYU and hopefully Terrell Bennett from Weber. So we've really done a good job of bringing, I think it's almost 8 new faces in that area of transfers that we hope can develop and fill holes for us that we've lost. But there's also guys on campus that were here last year that weren't big contributors. Anoka, I always mess this name up, but it's Migago. He was at BYU, signed with BYU, and redshirted last year for us. He should factor in at defensive end and fill holes. Sani Tuiaki or Turbo, be a guy who didn't play a lot last year who will factor in this year for us. On the back end or in the middle, you're looking at Sione Mo, who's been in this program for a while, that's had a really good spring. Hoping he steps up. Kaleo Nevis, who played a lot of special teams for us at striker, kind of another guy that's got to fill the hole at striker for us. And then just guys, at corner, Xavier Steele, who's been in this program for a little bit, has got to take the next step. Jamie Nance, moved from receiver to corner, who can flat out run. Those guys, Luke Marion and Ike Larson, Ike Larson is a guy who's had a phenomenal spring, a local hometown guy that's had a great spring that I think has got to step up at safety. Luke Marion as well have been in this program. So there's this big group of guys that got to have great fall camps to help fill that void of the guys who have already played a lot of football for us that we know will do well for us. And those are the main ones when I look at the list.
Coach said that with Switzer's injury that there may be this linebacker by committee, and it may actually affect how you do your lineup and your line guys up on the field, maybe move a safety up, or how much does that do you feel like there are guys in the system that you feel like you can trust to run your system as it is, or do you feel like you may need to do some tweaks on your entire defensive scheme?
First, losing Anthony Switzer was just it was a real kick in the groin. It hurt. He was playing lights out, and he's big time. So that was a big damper on the first 6 months. But it is going to be a culmination of guys. It's going to be by committee. We did bring in a really interesting prospect in Okiki Omari, which I didn't mention a second ago. He's a JC guy from Cerritos Junior College who was a really good player for him. He had a foot injury that a lot of people shied away from, but he's a big-time player that people are scared of in terms of the injury. We're hoping that by week 2 and week 3 he's full go. He is a Anthony Switzer, another type dude who can be big time and long and lanky and can run. Kaleo Nevis will be, part of that. And then really just seeing if we can get more to nickel type stuff if we need to in the 10 personnel sets where guys try to spread you out, move a corner in there, move a safety. We will tinker with more of that if we don't have a guy who can do it all. But I think it will be by committee. I think it's just how camp goes, how Amari, goes along, how Kaleo develops to really see who we are. My job is simple. Whatever the best players are, call the best defenses for it. Don't try to do it the opposite. Don't try to make things happen, based off of what I think's best. Just I'm going to do what the players tell me to do. And whoever the best players are, we'll do what's best for us in that, in that world.
There was some great leadership on defense last year that some of those guys have left. But what do you see in the leadership that you have still here, developing and kind of leading that defense on the field?
Yeah, Cash Gilliam and Nick Henninger were just phenomenal leaders for us last year in terms of just vocal, hardworking dudes. Losing those guys is tough, especially, both of them. Nick Henninger's, I've said it before, Dak Prescott, best leader I've been around. Nick Henninger was better. So losing a guy like that's tough. I've been pleased up to this point in seeing the guys step up. Guys like Byron Vaughns and Hale Matuapuaka. Hunter Reynolds has been phenomenal trying to fill that void. AJ Vongpachong coming out of his skin a little bit and really trying to step up and be a guy. Mike and Dre at corner. So I've been pleased. I've challenged those guys. The first thing I told them on our first meeting coming into spring that we got a big hold of, Phil. But I feel like, again, by committee, there's been a lot of guys who stepped up like those guys. Kaleo Nevis has been phenomenal for us as well. Johnny Carter have been great. They've been doing it as a group. Maybe just not Cash and Nick. Now it's 5 or 6 guys, which is actually better when you have 5 or 6 and not just 1 or 2. So it'll be a challenge, and it's a big part of really the messaging tonight for camp.
You've got some players that have switched positions.
Yeah.
Do you foresee that there may be others that could be moving around a little bit? Too early to tell until you start to see what you've got here in the fall?
For me, it was most of the moving around position-wise came at corner. I wanted to add some length and in that world. Mike and Dre and the 2 previous corners that were here before were phenomenal for us. Physical, set edges, did a great job. I did want to just try to get us a little bit more length in that area, and Dre and Mike will be great for us again this year. But moving a Johnny Carter, AJ Carter, who's arguably our best athlete on the team, period, to corner and gaining that size and length can really do wonders for you as a play caller. And then moving Jamie Nance, a receiver who can flat out run, transferred to Nebraska, and was a phenomenal special teams player for Coach Perimsky. Moving him to corner gives us another really long-armed guy who can roll. So now, we do have more length, more size, which was something we were trying to do big picture on defense last year. Definitely helps us. I don't really see a lot of guys moving past this point. Maybe some Mike to Will to Mike type things. But everyone's pretty much settled in where they'll be. Most of it came at corner. And again, that was just trying to add some more length to the room, big picture-wise.
We talk about players and their development, and the off-season's important for them. But as a coach, what do you do in the off-season for your development to become a better coach, better leader, or just understand the game better? What are some things that you do or this coaching staff does to improve your own development?
It's funny, great question. One thing that COVID took away from us 2 years previous was the ability to go and do professional development. One thing we often do as coaches is in the off season, we go and meet with other coaches. We go and go to other programs, NFL and college programs, and just sit in on meetings and talk with coaches and learn and continue to get better. When COVID hit, you weren't able to do that. You weren't able just to walk into someone's building and say, hey, I'm here. I'm going to be here for 3 or 4 days, and learn. And that stunts your growth a little bit as a coach. So with COVID restrictions starting to ease up, we were able to get out and do some professional development. I took a trip to the New England Patriots for a few days, which was phenomenal, and got to just be around Coach Belichick and his staff, which obviously they do a great job, and just grow and learn in that environment, which was an absolute blessing. So for me, that was probably the thing that I looked forward to the most with COVID restrictions lifting and being able to do and watch them in the training camp environment, which is what we're going to be doing. And you go back and you look at the mistakes you made and the things you did wrong, as a play caller, and try to not make those mistakes again, grow from those. Anytime you're a first-year coordinator, you're going to butcher it like I did, and which every coordinator told me I did. Manny told me I would. All the guys, Blake Baker, guys that have done it before me in our family tree. And but you learn and you get better and you don't make those mistakes again. So a lot of it's QCing yourself, and then also getting out to do some professional development like I got to do this spring, which was great.
Sorry, one last question: are the neon tape on the fingertips, is that coming back this year?
That was a deal. I didn't realize that was going to be so big. I do it, one, because I'm not the tallest, biggest guy, so I can get lost in the mix a little bit. And I want guys to be able to see me, so it helps me communicate with the kids better. I always hated as a player when I couldn't see my coach. Like when I was on the field, in college, it drove me crazy, or high school. Like, why are you hiding, or why are you making this harder on me out here? So for me, it was one of those things, remembering as a player how difficult that could be. The other part is this: when we play against our offense, they go so freaking fast that they got to turn their heads and find you quick. And so part of that is why I do that, just to be able for them to see me and communicate better. I try to communicate a lot to our guys in terms of information to our guys, so it helps me do that. So yeah, it'll be back. It serves a purpose, but primarily I think it's because I'm just short.
Well, I love the look. I think it's cool.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. It's fun, and the kids don't have a reason to say, "Oh, I can't see you, Coach." I'm like, I'm as bright as can be. So.
Well, Coach Banda, we look forward to an exciting 2022 season. Best of luck.
Appreciate you, and thank you for all the support and everything you guys do. It really means a lot to us to get out there and cover us. We don't have a lot of people who do, and for the ones that do, they're diehards, and they do a great job. So thank you for everything you do for this program, and look forward to seeing those fans come August 27th at home versus UConn.